Matt Day here with Parsons, Graham and Day, and want to take a dive into the shallow end of the pool and talk about the Heard v. Depp, Depp v. Heard case that just recently wrapped up. I've been getting several questions from people as it's come up, as typical pop culture things do, and the more televised court appearances that we get, the more everyday Americans are talking about the court process. All right, so a little bit of background. The Depp v. Heard case stemmed from an editorial that Amber Heard had written and was published in the Washington Post. Washington Post, doing its usual bang-up job of vetting its material, published this editorial in which Heard claimed to have been the victim of domestic violence. Now, while she didn't name Johnny Depp specifically, she didn't say, Johnny Depp beat me, she all but said, hey, Jack Sparrow got drunk and hit me. Okay? From that, Johnny sued her for defamation. And defamation, of course, is where you libel somebody, you slander somebody. Essentially, you tell an untruth about somebody, and you know it's not true, and they suffer from damages. They suffer damages because of that. You say something that's untrue, either spoken or in the written word, and they suffer damages because of that. Now, in this case, we know that after this editorial, which occurred back in 2018, that Johnny was released from his contract with Walt Disney, and that cost him approximately $22 million, losing that contract with Disney. So he sues her for defamation. She then countersues him for defamation based on statements that his attorneys had made toward her and about her. All right, so we got competing defamation claims going on. Johnny Depp's defamation claims against Amber, Amber's defamation claims against Johnny. And for 2 months, the nation was captivated by the train wreck that was their relationship. We heard testimony about abuse. We heard testimony about alcoholism, drug use and abuse. We even heard testimony about somebody defecating in the marital bed. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It was broadcast all around the world. Millions of people tuned in to watch it. At the end of all the testimony, and when the arguments by attorneys had been made, the jury came back, and essentially it was a Johnny Depp victory. They awarded him $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages. Now, they also awarded Amber Heard $2 million in compensatory damages. Now, I've been getting asked, what are the differences between compensatory and punitive damages? Compensatory damages are those damages in which the finder of fact, a jury in this case, says this amount of money will make you whole. Essentially, this amount of money will restore you to where you were before the transgression of the other party. So for Johnny, they said it's $10 million to restore you where you were, okay? And for Amber, $2 million. Now, they awarded Johnny punitive damages. Punitive damages are those damages meant to punish an individual because their act was so egregious that we can't allow it in society. Polite society has norms. You violated those norms in a huge way, and we have to punish you. We can't send you to the jail in a civil suit, okay? So we got to punish you with money damages. Now, Virginia has a cap on punitive damages. Oklahoma also has a cap on punitive damages. In Oklahoma, there are 3 tiers to punitive damages: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And obviously, the worse the conduct, the worse the knowledge on the person who's committing the conduct, the worse the punitive damages can be. But they're still capped. So, jury awards Johnny Depp $5 million. The judge then reduces it down to $350,000 because of the statutes. And the question I'm getting is, how could a judge reduce what the jury found? Again, the judge has to make the verdict conform to the law. And so the law in Virginia said, hey, there's a cap on this. It is not $5 million. It's $350,000 for this type of case. So the judge reduced that down to what the cap was. So Johnny walks out netting $8,350,000 after you subtract the compensatory damages that he would owe to Amber Heard. Now, what's going to be interesting is, how is Amber going to pay this money? She has already defaulted on some charitable contributions. I mean, she's got issues of her own. This entire case has presented her and really brought her out to light, right? So she has lost contracts, she has lost movie deals. She really wasn't that big of a star before maybe Aquaman. And so Johnny Depp and being married to him was sort of a big thing to her. I don't know that she's going to be able to actually pay that, but the case likely doesn't end there. Most likely, one or both of these parties is going to appeal it to a higher court in an effort to change the outcome in some way. Johnny may appeal and ask that they get rid of the cap on the punitives. Amber may appeal and say, hey, they didn't meet the burden, the evidence wasn't there, the jury got it wrong. Please get rid of the compensatory and punitive damages. So the case likely is not over. Now, there's also a chance that while it's pending on appeal, the parties come together and they settle in secret. Typically, they'll try and keep that secret. They'll settle in secret, and that way it just takes care of the whole thing, stops the case, stops the hemorrhaging, you know? So we learned a couple things during the course of this. Obviously, number one is that just because someone claims to be a victim, that does not mean that they are a victim, all right? Every single claim has to be vetted. And I bump into this every day in my practice. I practice primarily in family and domestic courts, and there are frequent allegations of domestic abuse or child abuse, and those claims have to be investigated. You shouldn't necessarily start out believing the person who's making the allegation. It's not to say that you should start out disbelieving them, but they should have to show the truth and veracity of their claims. We should be able to investigate, find some evidence to support it. Their testimony should be compelling. It should be accurate. So what we learned here is we don't just start off believing the person who claims to be a victim, because sometimes, as can happen in this case, the person who's been accused is actually the victim. And again, I see that frequently in my domestic cases. Someone will claim to be a victim, and frequently it's the other way around. They are projecting what they have done onto the other person. Secondly, we saw an interesting trial strategy which stemmed from what I was just saying, which is we get in, we defend Johnny Depp, right? He's the accused. He's been accused of being a domestic abuser. We defend that, and then we turn it around and we actually show how he's the actual victim, right? It's a very, very difficult strategy to pursue because it's twofold. We got to show something didn't occur, and then we got to come back and show that the opposite did occur. So it's a very unique strategy and can be very difficult to demonstrate that. The third thing we learned is that the rich, the Hollywood elite, they're really not that much different from us. I mean, what we saw for those 2 months, that could have easily been a series of episodes on Jerry Springer, right? Really what separates the Hollywood elite or the rich from us isn't the type of drama that they're going through. They've got drug use, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, shitting the bed, right? It's the money. If this had been a run-of-the-mill case, it wouldn't have been on TV. We would have never heard of it, right? And the last thing we learned is that the judge will try and conform the verdict to the law. So when a verdict is rendered, even though the fact finder, the members of the jury said, hey, it needs to be $5 million to stop her from doing this, the judge said, hey, no, we can't do that. Here's what the law says, and we're going to reduce that down. This has been Matt Day of Parsons, Graham & Day. Have a great one.